All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to 30 to Life. Today we have a special guest. You know, it's not often we get to talk to somebody, you know, on the other side of the line in the penitentiaries. We got an ex-officer here who has 23 years within the prison system. He has a unique side of the story that a lot of us don't get to hear. You know, he's got something to tell us. So 23 years in the California prison system, that's a long time to be in the system. I'm sure you've seen some things up in there. But let me ask you, what got you started in this career? Because a lot of people that usually get into corrections, you know, they have some type of military background or some type of law enforcement background. But how about you? What really got you to go into corrections?
All right. Well, here we are. Backtrack to 1994. Getting ready to get out of the service. My mom sends me a letter to apply for corrections. You know, back then, I'm 22 years old. I don't want to work in a prison. I ain't trying to be telling grown men what to do. So I end up getting out. I'm going to college. You know, I'm thinking I'm trying to do something like work with kids or, you know, do something creative. So I find out, you know, back then in 1994 that correctional officers were making about 45 grand a year. That's a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
I got out of the military, I was only making $480 every 2 weeks. So I went and signed up for the class at the community college, ended up working a job, making $9 an hour. $9 an hour was a lot to me. I keep hearing all these dudes talking about taking the test for corrections. So, you know, I end up following suit, and a year and a half later, I end up in the department, you know, not knowing what I got myself into.
It must have been something to get in the department. What was it like the first day you actually walked into that place?
It was an experience because it's on the job training.
Right.
You know, the academy back then was only 6 weeks. It was like a bootleg version of a military boot camp, which was pretty weak. And you know, send you to the prison, you report, you're brand new, everything's brand new on you. You know, everybody knew you were new. I mean, I didn't even know my way around the prison. I got lost the first day. So, you know, my first day, they had a yard worker. He's like, hey, you know, can I go take a piss? All right, you know, open the bathroom door. I'm thinking I'm supposed to stand there and watch him piss. This dude looking at me like, you know, the fuck is wrong with you? And that was my first day right there. And then on top of that, it was the winter. I didn't have enough money for a jacket, you know, so it's like 30 degrees out there. And I'm out there in a short sleeve shirt, the shirt that I bought at the academy on that Friday that I bought because I didn't have no money to buy a jacket at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an experience. It was an experience. It was actually didn't want to do it the first year. I felt like jumping ship and just going to go get like a Fed job, like at the post office or something like that.
Right.
And then, you know, went from there. Just, through the years, I just bounced around from different prisons, you know, just trying to see, you know, different, you know, just experience and seeing if it was any different. But, you know, to be honest, it's not to be disrespectful, but we always have a saying, you know, the trash is the same everywhere. You know, and that's on my side what they say. You know, the trash is the same trash any prison you go to.
Right.
You know, I know some people are going to take offense to that, but that's coming from my side.
Well, that's what we want to hear. We want to hear the raw deal, you know, coming from that side. You know,
Yeah.
often we don't get to hear that side. And a lot of times convicts, you know, they always have this assumption about COs, or they have these things that we talk about as far as how the COs get down is. Um, well, let me take you back to when you first started. It was different back then, and we were talking about how criteria as far as getting into the job was a little different. And you know, you even mentioned that even people with records were able to become a correctional officer back then.
Yeah, yeah. I had friends that were. I had one good friend that from about 18 to 18, he was in YA. Never. He didn't even know what it was like to be home for Christmas,
Mm,
for the holidays, and he got hired on. I had another good buddy. You know, he was an active gang member, and the reason his last chance was because he showed the paperwork to the judge that he was signed up for the Marine Corps. The judge let him slide. I was in the academy with straight gangsters. I mean, these dudes had LA, 13, Sacramento, you know, the Sacra, Salas. They had their hoods on them,
mm,
you know, in the dorms. They were like fucking gangsters,
mm,
and but back then we were making $13 an hour. There was no cell phones, you know. People had tobacco, they had weights, you know. So the only thing I could think of that they were probably bringing in was, the hard drugs,
mm,
But then when everything turned over, cigarettes, no tobacco, took away the weight piles, um, cell phones, then that's when everything turned over. They gave us a big pay raise, like 35, 40%, you know, so much money on the table now, the hiring criteria changed. If the new hiring criteria was like, man, if you got expelled in the fourth grade, they want to know why. Then they might say that you're not qualified, then you got to reapply, you know. So we're seeing a new wave of officers, come through the system, basically a bunch of squares, somebody that's never seen a gang member, you know, somebody that's never seen that lifestyle or, struggled, they just regular people that wanted a good career for themselves, not knowing what they're getting themselves into.
mm.
And a lot of them, aren't mentally strong enough to deal with that shit. You know, when you grow up rough in a rough household or just rough in general, it pretty much makes your mind, your mentally a lot stronger because you've already seen struggle. So to be in this environment, it's really nothing. It's just up to you if you're going to do your job, get your money and do your job and not succumb to, oh, they're from my neighborhood or they're from my area. I'm going to look out for them. You can't do that. You know, you just gotta focus like it's a job.
For those guys that were, you know, had their gangs on them and stuff back then, and they went into CDC as an officer, did that kind of put a target on their back as far as, being an ex-gang member or anything like that?
Actually, no, because they were more easygoing. They weren't scared to talk to the inmates. They talked to them like men, like somebody from their old hood. They would talk to them. They never changed up. Like all of a sudden, they're, the only difference is, yeah, you're not calling them by their fucking street name, but care that, you know, oh, you're from here, okay, it's just like somebody they know, oh, you doing double life? Oh yeah, my homie, he's over here and yada yada, Salinas Valley, catching a case too, on a case, so on. So, they're less impressed, let's say, to where a lot of these new guys, hirees, they either hate inmates or they have a fascination with that lifestyle,
Mm.
you know. And then all of a sudden you see the changes in them. They're getting tattoos. They're putting creases in their pants. Their
Mm.
walk is changing. All of a sudden they're saying essay and homie, you know, when it was like, man, I knew dude. I grew up with dude. Well, man, he was a square. He wore cowboy boots, you know. He played football and baseball. I don't know who this dude is, you know. All of a sudden he's tatted up, black and gray, you know, up and down. You know, you know, he's saying Holmes and homie and, you know, stuff that you would have never expected had he not came in the department.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I remember when I was doing time in CYA, we had some, you know, officers there that were, you know, straight gangsters. There was a sergeant one time on one of my dorms who was a northerner. He was a northerner, and when any Southsider came into his dorm, he would catch a fade with him. And I'm talking about this sergeant be walking around with a black eye or whatever, you know, but that's how he would get down. He would catch fades with his enemies, even though he was a sergeant. It was a trip. Did you ever see anything like that as far as an officer catching a fade with an inmate and just, you know, letting it be at that, you know?
I've seen it a few times in the 90s, maybe like up to about 2003. I've seen dudes do that, you know, where they just take the shit off, you know, tell the officer, hey, pop this door, you know, go in there and handle it, you know, and walk away, you know. But just like convicts, officers are going to pick their battles,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, it pretty much it's just the same way on both sides, you know. Some inmates, they're not going to go try to, you know, fuck with a certain individual that they know is a fucking killer, you know. Um,
Real talk.
yeah, and it's the same way with officers. They're gonna pick and choose, you know. But once you get that rep, the thing with officers is you can't back down because that's gonna stick with you know. So you kind of have to pick and choose, and that's what I would always say. You know, I would tell my coworkers, I don't give a fuck if I get my ass kicked. It's a fight. It's supposed to, one of you is gonna get your ass kicked.
Mhm.
But I would always say, like, yeah, you might kick my ass. You ain't gonna want to fight me twice, though. You know, and they would just like, what the fuck? I go, you're not gonna want to fight me twice. You know, so you know, like certain people you came across, you're like, man, fuck this. I ain't gonna fight this dude again. You know, it's a lot of work. You know, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, that was the early. Later down the years, nah, that wasn't happening. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I mean, I've seen people do it, get away with it, but me personally, I wasn't trying to put myself, you know, in that line of fire. You know, I like the money too much. I wasn't doing nothing. I wasn't gonna do nothing stupid to put myself in the cross.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've seen it in the 90s, early 2000s, 2001, 2, 3. Yeah, I've seen a lot of hands-on stuff. You know, just it could be over the most like disrespect thing. You know, like dudes in a holding cage and they're just, you know, being disrespectful. You know, I know personally officers would like not cuff them so tight to where you could slip out of them. You know, it's just basically like go for it.
Mhm.
You know, but 8 times out of 10, you know, dudes ain't trying to do that. You know, because you already know, you know, they leaving the cuffs loose, but you're not gonna catch a fair one. You're gonna get packed. You know, you're gonna get packed out and shit. You know, and you know, go from there. You know, report says you slipped out your cuffs.
Mhm.
You don't know how. You know,
Wow.
so a lot of times those dudes ain't trying to do all that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, man. Were you the type of CO that went and just did your 8 and hit the gate? Or were you the type of CO, you know, that made life hard on the inmates? You know, because some COs come in and they just will make your time hard. Were you that type of CO, or were you the type that just, you know, did your time and got out of there?
I was never dedicated. I wasn't one of those guys that was gung-ho about the job. I looked at it as a job, at my responsibility. I didn't like to fuck with people, even if I was having a bad day. A lot of times they drew first blood,
Right.
you know. Then I had to turn it up. I had no choice. Or, you know how they say, snip it at the butt. You know what I mean? You know, uh, I used to always tell the dudes, I give you enough rope, I'll let you hang yourself,
Right.
you know. And a lot of times they would do that, and I'd let them know, like, hey, I didn't say nothing to you, but don't think I ain't noticed, you know. So when I fuck the tear up, just know it's on you, And then after a while, it got to the point when somebody was fucking up, I would just get get in the day room. A lot of times too, I would stand on the table and I would yell state issue, and I would just say state issue, A side, uh, go holler at cell 245, thank them, and I would break the whole tier down except cell 245. I would just say, hey, enjoy the show, man. I ain't gonna fuck with you.
So cell 245 was the one that pretty much was fucking up. And
After several warnings.
exactly. And so, everybody else is pretty much gonna deal with the repercussions of this one person or this one individual.
Oh yeah.
So,
That's the power of politics. And technically, I'm not doing anything wrong. All I'm doing is taking away what you're not supposed to have in the Title 15.
true.
Extra sack lunch, nah, that ain't yours. Read your Title 15, you're supposed to eat it. Fold your atoms, nah, you ain't have that. You got a receipt for that canteen? No, all right, it's mine. But if you find the receipt, get back your canteen in 45 days.
Right.
That's why I would always smile when somebody would say, man, do your fucking job. I would smile and I'd be like, oh, okay, I got you. I'm gonna do my job.
Right. Yeah. So for those who are listening, when he says state issue is just basically what he was describing to all of you. Is, anything that was issued to you by the state. So, it's basically your bar of soap, your shoes, your blues, whatever that was issued to you by the state is what you are allowed.
Exactly. It's all within the Title 15, So anytime they would just say, I'm gonna write you up, I'm a 602, that's cool, state issue. So there's ways, there was answers to everything. There's answers to everything.
Right. So would you say that, just like the inmates, the officers, they can play the game too?
Yes, if you have to, adjust to the environment, inmates, convicts, they're never gonna adjust to me. I have to adjust to their environment. I have to swim with them. I have to swim with all the piranhas. I have to stay in the jungle. So I have to learn to adjust. You know, they're not gonna understand where I'm coming from because they're the ones doing all the time. So I have to understand where they're coming from, being there all day.
That's crazy you say that because, um, they're the ones doing time, but you're also doing time too. When spending all that time, you do 8-hour shifts every day, 5 days a week, sometimes overtime. So, like you said, you're adjusting to their environment. And so does that take an effect on you, as a person, in your everyday life when you leave that job, when you walk out the door or out them gates, do you still carry that mentality with you?
Yeah, sadly, yes. Respect. A lot of people out here in the civilian world, they don't understand respect, spacing, you know, um, just a lot of things to them, to the average person, that's a joke, might not be a joke to me, you know, just because of how I've been wired, over 23 and a half years. I was wired differently, don't touch me, don't put your fucking shoulder on me, or your hand on me, don't rub my shoulder, just little things, even somebody that I kind of know that calls me a bitch, you know, it might be a joke to him. It's not a joke to me,
Right.
So yeah, it does. It does. I even people that I kind of know that I'm around, I keep an eye on them, 'cause just seeing all the things I've seen through the years,
Right.
you know, a piece of me, a piece of that prison environment stayed with me.
Wow. Yeah, that's serious, man. 23 years is a long time to be working in an environment like that. And a lot of people out here on the streets, you guys don't know that, when an individual enters those gates, it's a whole different world in there. And, if you don't adapt quick, you can get taken advantage of. Um, you know, so with those 23 years that you were working there as an officer, did you ever see anything that, you would consider pretty scandalous or whatever, where as far as officers, they had to do what they had to do in that moment, but you looked at it as like, hey man, that shit wasn't really right.
There's plenty of times. There's been times where people would come in the building and work. They would be there just for the day. Everything's calm, everything's quiet. You know, they decide they're bored. They want to start tearing up houses. I would have to tell them, "Hey man, chill out. You know, you're only here for the day." But they want to be petty about everything,
Mm.
and I would be like, "You're only here for the day, dude. You're not gonna make a difference. Nobody's acting up. Is anybody being disrespectful? Is anybody? No, but I smell pruno on the tier. You find it? Yeah, I'm gonna write them up for what? Just toss it, or you're gonna be writing all day. Just toss it. You're not gonna get an attaboy out of it.
Mm.
Why waste your time? Just toss it. That hurts more, you know. And a lot of times when I would be on the tier, I always walk the tier. I never had my belt on, so you could never hear me coming. So, you know, I caught somebody. I looked in that. If I looked it inside, you had a weapon. I saw it. I just tell you, flush it.
Mm.
Take the L. Or if they had pruno, I'd be like, man, you better put that shit away. They'd be like, all right, just call it good, you know. But if it was like a weapon, I'd just say, man, flush that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I met officers like that in there. That's what I was talking about as far as doing your 8 and hitting the gate. A lot of the officers in there really just don't want to make waves on their shift, man, because it just makes it a lot harder for them. You got to put in paperwork, you got to do all these things, and a lot of the officers, they just want to just get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, because you one weapon is not going to make a difference. There's probably another one being made that same night. So, you know, I ain't gonna waste my time writing somebody up. Just get flush the motherfucker.
Mhm. So 23 years, man. It's crazy. You and I talked about things you've seen with the inmates. Why don't you tell us some of the crazy things that you've seen, with the inmates as far as, you know, riots or fights or anything like that? What was one of the craziest things you've seen in your building or on your yard?
There's one where they had day room. They removed the dude and they chased him into my office and they're stabbing the fuck out of him, like literally like 2 feet from me. And I'm like, fuck, like I'm backed up against the wall. I didn't know what the fuck to do. Like, I'm tripping out and shit. And I'm telling the dude, get the fuck out of my office. And they're still packing him out.
Damn.
So I had my other porter fucking clean it all up. They had my other porter, and like those are things, stuff like that. The what scares me the most was blood. When I would always see blood,
Mm.
cell fight or something, I would always like wake up dudes in the middle of the night, like, hey dude, like I need you guys to clean this up. And they're like, what the fuck? And I'd be like, look, man, I'm gonna give you guys like 10 sack lunches each, man. Just knock it out, And the sergeant's like, oh, go put on a PPE suit and go, you and so-and-so go clean that up. Hell no, I ain't cleaning that up. I wouldn't even listen to it, dude. I just pop somebody out and just fucking bride their asses and shit, because I don't like blood. I don't know what they all have. Shit, a lot of dudes have Hep C. I ain't trying to catch none of that.
Mm.
Fucking needles and shit. You just, there's I don't know, there's so much. There's so much I've seen that just it pops into my head different times. People I've came across, and it's funny and shit. But uh, I was at level one time and I found a cell phone. They hid it, but it wasn't locked. So I remember it was this girl texting them. So I got it. I texted him back and I said, hey, I don't want to be with you no more. I met a dude in here, so don't fucking call me no more, because I'm in love. I met a dude in here and I think, we're going to parole at the same time. Press send.
Shit.
So, these little things through the years, so many things pop through my head certain times where I have to laugh. It's more something I laugh about now than um, reminisce, but, then look back at it to where like, oh, that was fucked up.
Right. Yeah, see, that's the thing. A lot of people got like that, never been to prison or anything. They don't understand.
Uh,
And it changes you for sure. You do things that you don't think you would do on a normal day. But I remember we were talking and you had mentioned about the coffee in the chow hall. Do you want to tell that story?
Man, I'm not trying to get anybody yeah, fuck it.
Without mentioning no names or nothing, of course.
Yeah, man, earlier in my career, man, I used to work with this dude. He's not in the department no more, but he was a fucking dickhead. I mean, he was cool with me, but he was just a fucking dickhead in general. He was just the type that he liked fucking with inmates. And every morning, me and him worked the kitchen. Every morning he would he would go in there. They'd set up the coffee. He'd get on the counter, piss in the camos, do his thing. We'd be there. I think our shift was 4 to 12. So we do chow. Everybody would be coming in, laughing, joking. Certain ones with little attitudes towards us. They'd go get their coffee, and we'd just be watching them drink their coffee and just sit there smiling and, thinking it was the funniest thing in the world. But I mean, it's fucked up. But hey, I wasn't doing it, but I wasn't about to go tell on nobody. So it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's funny because as an ex-inmate myself, I told you we always wondered if that kind of stuff was happening, you know, and and to be honest with you, I was in YA, and I remember, you know, the youngsters in there, they would make the plates for the COs too, and they would do some scantless shit to that stuff. So it happens vice versa, man. Nobody's innocent, you know. When you go in there, if you're an officer and you're an inmate, man, we're on opposite sides of the pole. So
Yeah.
pretty much anything goes in there, but that's fucked up.